I thought the applause was for me, but now I see Mr. James Cameron there. Hi everybody, I'm David Canfield with Vanity Fair. Thank you for coming on a Tuesday morning to see this epic piece of cinema. We have four of the extraordinary actors in this film, as well as James Cameron zooming in. Hello, James. So let's start with Stephen Lang. Sigourney Weaver. Sam Worthington. And last but certainly not least, Zoe Saldana. Good. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, James, for this wonderful movie.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Zoe. I would be there for sure in a heartbeat, but apparently I'm infectious, so everyone's safe.
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly.
You've all returned to Pandora with this film. Zoe, I'm going to start with you with a very simple question. What was it like coming back?
It was exciting. It was amazing. We felt like the day would never come, you know? The first film was so special, and its reception was just anything, unlike anything we had ever imagined. To get the opportunity to come back, it just felt like it was the gift that kept on giving, you know?
Sam, for you, what did it feel like? And also, can you give us, I suppose, the scope of, you know, how long you were filming this?
You give me a pretty easy question to start, mate.
And what it looked like. Well, we're going to get tougher, I promise.
So the question is, what was the scope?
Well, let's start with how long it took. What exactly was the commitment of coming back to this, and what stages did that look like?
I think most of us got a phone call in about 2013 when Jim got back from going to the Mariana Trench, as you do. Which was, I think that was when he was basically saying he's figured out how to continue and expand the world. And I think about 2015, I was pushing my wife around the room, who was pregnant at the time, that's why we were pushing her. But I saw the story in picture form, very detailed, very amazing designs of the whole saga. And then I think it was about 2017 it was like, well, how are we going to do that? So that was, I think that's about right for all of us, was someone's been involved since, say, 2017. But then we were still, Jim was still working on it right up until we locked off. And me and Zoe did some motion capture stuff earlier this year. So there's always been people involved in some level, including us. Yeah.
It's so good to see it on the screen finally after all that. Yeah. Sigourney and Stephen, when I watched the first Avatar, I would not have necessarily known how you would come back for the second movie. Sigourney, what was your initial reaction to being told you'd be playing a 14-year-old girl, and how did you think about approaching that? Because I think it's both seamless and really wonderful to see you in a completely different kind of part.
Well, I thought if he was crazy enough to ask me, I might be just crazy enough to say yes. But luckily, we talked, Jim and I, in 2010, just had a conversation really about this forest girl who preferred being with animals and plants and trees to being with people. And so luckily, that gave me some time to, be able to think who Kiri was, and so that I'm grateful I had, like 7 years to think about it and work on it. And what was your second question?
No, that was it. Stephen, what about for you? When did you know you would be coming back in a different form, and how did you react to that?
I knew I would be coming back quite a while ago. Jim mentioned it to me as far back as 2007, actually. We were at a party in Wellington. But at that point, of course, we hadn't even finished Avatar, so it'd be a little presumptuous to think that I'd be coming back in a sequel because we didn't know. But then in 2010, Jim said, "You're back," and then began talking about the arc that the character would have, and I found it very, very exciting to think that I would be able to go deeper, with the character, maybe get into some of his motive, get beyond pure hatred and bile at some point and get into some of the deeper motivations. And, I was delighted to be back because, unfinished business.
Well, I mean, if Jim found a way to bring back Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator, then he was certainly going to find a way to bring back Sigourney and Steve.
That's a very good point. So, James, I wonder if you can outline for us a little bit of what was asked of these actors and what they've accomplished here in terms of the motion capture, in terms of filming underwater, because you watch this film and these are four, I think, really extraordinary performances, and performances that you might not know just exactly how much has gone into them. So what can you tell us?
I think the key thing here, I apologize for being a bit hoarse, I've been coughing. The key thing here is that we spent a lot of time and energy between the two films getting the technical side of our process to a state of perfection where I could turn to the actors and promise them that anything they did, anything they created, no matter how subtle and internal, would read. If they were expressing it, we would see it in their characters. The interesting thing is that Sam and Stephen Lang, both were live action characters. Sam partially in the first film, and Stephen completely live action characters. And so Stephen especially hadn't been through the capture process. Same with Sigourney as well. She hadn't been through the capture process that much. And so, to be able to turn to them and going into the new movie and say, you don't have to kind of swing for the fences here. You can play it as internal as you want. It's going to be just fine, and to have their trust in me and in the process. So all four of this great cast that you see before you are seen only as pixels, as ones and zeros in your finished image, and yet you feel their humanity so deeply in the movie. It's certainly the thing that I'm the proudest of. Of course I'm proud of all the design work that our designers did and all that, and the cinematography. But what I'm really most proud of is the way their characters come through, and you can sometimes when they're not even talking can understand and feel exactly what they're thinking and feeling in the moment. So that in a funny way, that only all gets you to zero. It gets you to parity with every other movie that's made using photographic process. The thing that I think that the acting community at large doesn't understand is that the performance capture process is incredibly liberating, because what we essentially do is we take the photography and we delay it until later. So all of the setting up of dolly track and crane moves and all of the lighting and rehearsing the extras and all of the exigencies of location, the sun's going down, we gotta hurry up and scramble around. All that stuff is taken out of the mix. So it's a completely pure acting process, which I enjoy as a director because I'm not distracted by all that other stuff. I'm not distracted by camera moves and lighting and all of the other coordinative things that I have to do on a live action shoot. I'm really just there for the actors, and they're just there for the truth of the moment with each other. And I think that often gets overlooked. People think of it as a very artificial process, when in fact, it's highly intuitive, it's highly actor-centric. It's much more like a theater rehearsal, like for a play, where you have a non-judgmental, highly creative kind of sandbox where you just create. You know, I find it quite intoxicating as a process, because I love, as the writer, I love seeing the actors, you know, bringing the characters to life. And I really enjoy, you know, working with these 4 actors so much, because we have a shorthand, we have experience together, you know, from the first film. And I love the fact that they trust me that it's all going to be there down the line. And I want to say one other thing on the process for, you know, actors in the audience. The beauty of uncoupling the photography from the acting is that we don't have to do coverage. So in a typical scene, a photographic scene, we all have this kind of vaunted picture of movies as being photography, which they historically have, but there's another way to do it. But in a photographic version, you would do, you know, master, maybe some loose group shots, 2-shot, over the shoulders, and then close-ups. Maybe 6 or 7 different setups, maybe 6 or 7 takes of each one of those setups. So that can be anywhere between 30 and 40 times that the actor has to create a performance that's similar enough that it can be cut together and actually work. With this process that we're doing, we only need 1 take. Now, it doesn't mean we'll do 1 take. We might do 10 takes, but any one of those 10 takes, all of the coverage can be extracted from it after the fact. All the close-ups and 2-shots and wide shots and helicopter shots and crane shots and everything can all be done later. So there's simultaneously the challenge of always being on, but there's also the freedom of being able to change, take 3 completely different staging. Get up and walk out of the room if that's what you're feeling. Come in and sit down, squat down in front of the actor, make physical contact if that's what you're feeling. It doesn't have to match anything that you've previously established, because nothing's established. So I don't know how you guys feel about it, you know, everybody on stage there, but that's how I read it.
Kind of a mini masterclass there from James.
Sorry, guys.
No, that's
Sigourney, I saw you really nodding in agreement there, and I thought about the physicality of Curie and what you bring to her. How did you find this exact kind of technology and way of performing liberating when playing her?
Well, I love hearing what Jim said, because obviously I couldn't do it at all without whatever magic he has going. And what I appreciated so much about the freedom this technology gives you is, yeah, we're in black suits with helmets, with cameras. That all drops away very quickly, and you're just sort of, you know, essence to essence with the other actor. It's like an early theater rehearsal. But for me, I was able to do a kind of preparation every day, standing outside the volume and just put Curie back in and drop this shell. And I found the process of working with Jim, and also he'd do whatever you might suggest. You know, he's so generous, but it gave you such incredible freedom to just be completely present and go with what was happening and let it go and trust that we would always find the scene and we would find the truth. So I think I've fallen in love with the process. It's so actor-centric and exciting, especially to work with these amazing actors and the kids who are, you know.
One thing that really stuck out to me versus the first one is how much we get to see you, especially you, Zoe and Sam, play off of each other. And this film is so much about family. and that really comes through in the performances. So in this kind of system of performing, what was it like acting with each other, creating that intimacy, that depth that we then see translated on screen?
I was telling Jim the other day, I did this movie where I choose movies for sometimes really weird reasons. And I did one movie just because it required me to be in prosthetics. I don't think I even read the script properly, to be honest. But the idea was I wanted to check out, to compare the two processes. And I said to Jim, we spent like 8 hours in prosthetics, and it was kind of derivative of the first movie, to be honest. So they made me big blue prosthetic head, and I was this blue alien covered in 8 hours of prosthetics. And what I found was I couldn't relate to the other actor. Any emotion that was coming out of me was kind of stuck by the makeup. And it was, I'm not putting down what the makeup team did. What they did was incredible, but I couldn't translate a performance, even to the point where I couldn't even speak because the lips weren't moving. So every time I said the line, the lips didn't move, sometimes with the epoxy. So they just rewrote it and said, oh, he's in the operation, his voice box got ripped out or something. So, so the whole thing, I just felt stifled. I couldn't connect to the other actor, I couldn't see. And then it was like, well, this to me has always felt like the future of makeup, where Jim's right, we can be as subtle as we want, we can be as emotional as you want, and you're connecting. It kind of, we don't have to worry about, is my performance translating? We can do what we need to do, which is sit back in it and relax on the performance when needed, and allow even just a thought to convey and trust in the system. So when you're doing this with another actor, it is just about changing what's inside each other and concentrating on that, rather than, shit, is my performance coming through? Am I being beyond the mask kind of thing? And so, it becomes, as Sigourney said, very liberating, and it gives you a freedom to build a relationship that hopefully, transcends the fact that we're just big and digitally blue.
In the first movie, we this process takes so much preparation and rehearsals and training. So by the time you shoot it, you capture it, which is the version of shooting and performance capture. You're transported into this world, and Jake Sully and Neytiri had a very solid backstory. Pandora was so alive, by the time we started shooting the first movie, and where Jake was coming from. Earth was so present, and this world was so new. Like Sam really brought that to the table. Their connection, is a testament, I guess, of our chemistry as people that came together working, under the guidance of like one of our idols and our mentor, and we were allowed. It was so permissive to let your imagination just completely go, and so the connections were real. When to come back to that, and now to witness an expansion of that love that was established, it just felt appropriate for Jake and Neytiri. It felt like he was going to raise those stakes. Sam and I, by coincidence, found ourselves in our lives married and starting our nests, so there was a lot to rip out of, from our personal lives.
Contractually obligated to have children. All right, boss?
Yeah, it's in the contract.
But there's also
I thought it was so dedicated of you guys to actually each have 3 children.
That's it.
Just
Method.
for the preparation.
I had to tell my wife, this is methods for the work, trust me.
And all boys too. But yeah, yes, like Sam and I did develop a very real connection when we did this. But the space that Jim provided just allowed us to really connect in that sense. It kind of felt like theater, like an intimate roundabout, theater, play that we were all putting together.
It's probably worth noting also that for the kids who were involved in our cast, these young actors who performance capture is acting to them. this is how they're learning acting. There's nothing alien about this to them. It comes naturally to them, and when you talk to them about acting, they will talk in terms of performance capture. And I think how fortunate for them, really, because it truly is. It's not going to replace anything, but it's on equal footing and offers so many, I think, advantages, which Jim, I think, articulated really, really well, and we have as well. There's just an honesty, a liberation to it, and you're all working 100% at the same time. You're not doing off-camera work in your curlers, getting called from your trailer, you know, to do off-camera lines or anything. We're all working 100% all the time. When you enter the volume, which is where we do the performance capture work, you are in a world of shared collective imagination with your fellow actors. And to me, that's what acting is about at the most fundamental level. And so I get all kind of shivery when I think about it, because Jim Cameron created this opportunity for us to do this. And the other thing that he does so successfully is he removes any of the worry about the technology for us. We know there's a lot of technology happening there, but you know what? It ain't our problem. All we have to do is tell the truth.
Amen. I love that.
I think especially of the final act of this movie, which is so riveting, in large part due to the visceral quality of the performance, especially of you, Sam, and you, Stephen. You've both made many kinds of movies, as you were saying, Sam. What's unique about action acting in this kind of format, in this kind of mode, and particularly when you have that space to kind of let loose a little bit?
Whether you the physical confrontations that Sam and I have, or have with other characters, are as difficult and as challenging in performance capture as they are in anything. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't matter whether it's live action or performance capture. The only thing that can, the only glitch that can happen is we wear head rigs, and when you do get when we get down and dirty, sometimes you can knock your rig, and you just got to deal with that. It's an obstacle, and we deal with it. That's just a mechanical problem. But I think that the fighting was just, we choreographed it, and we worked hard on it the same way we would under any other action film. I think the wrinkle here, which will be addressed, I'm sure, was the underwater work that was done. It's hard enough doing a knife fight with Sam Worthington in the first place. I mean, he's Australian. He's a born killer. and he's comfortable in the water, so it's tough. You talk, Sam.
Well, water has entered this conversation. So, James, how did you start to discuss with each of these actors, all of your actors, exactly what that kind of acting would entail, what they needed to do, how that training needed to proceed?
Yeah, so, once we'd sort of cracked the code of how to actually do it physically, then we had to get the entire cast comfortable acting in water. Is no problem. Paddling around the surface, everybody could swim. It was underwater. These characters are often asked to hold their breath for 2-3 minutes at a time for a scene, or for the actors who were asked to do that. The presumption is that the characters could actually hold their breath even longer than that. So it was kind of like boot camp. It was like ocean boot camp. And I happen to know from my previous movies that actors love boot camp because it's part of the preparation, it's part of becoming the character, part of putting on the costume and putting on the movement and all that. So the first film, we did a tremendous amount of preparation with movement. Zoe especially can attest to this. There was dance, martial training, gymnastics, all that sort of thing to figure out the vocabulary of the not-be movement, as well as doing dialect and language. We had all that again for this movie, and different, obviously, for the Sea Clan. But we also had to do this underwater training, so I thought, well, let's just take everybody to Hawaii. They did some pool work first, but then a lot of the free dive training and scuba training was done out on a reef in Hawaii, just like we did rainforest training, how to cook, how to gather, how to track, how to move in the rainforest. The idea is to do the training in situ as much as you can. So a lot of the free dive training was done on an actual coral reef in Hawaii, and I think that's a valuable sort of sense of memory exercise for everybody coming back into either the tank or the air volume, both of which are quite austere, and you figure out how to move and all that. But for example, Sigourney, I think your record is 6 minutes and 6.5 minutes, I think, holding your breath in a static apnea test.
Static breath hold, though. I'm not moving.
Yeah, but that gave you in a moving scene where your brain's highly active, you're using up a lot of oxygen, you're swimming around, doing whatever the scene required. You probably had a good 2.5 minutes of work time before you'd start to feel distressed, and everybody had the permission to cut. Anybody could cut at any moment if they were uncomfortable, needed to start over or whatever, take a little break, whatever it was. And of course, paramount in our minds was safety, as working with water is potentially dangerous. So we had a lot of safety protocols, a lot of safety divers in the water. When you do a Western, you ask the actors if they can ride a horse. They always say yes, but at least in a Western, you got a horse, and you got people that know how to teach you how to ride a horse. On this movie, we had to invent the creatures, and we had to figure out how to have them physically move underwater. Then we had to figure out how to ride the creatures. And then we had to take that and teach the actors how to ride the creatures. So it was a multi-part problem. But it was all to get to this kind of state when people are watching the movie, nobody knows, nobody's ever seen these creatures before, nobody knows what it would be like to ride one. But it has to look plausible and effortless, meaning that there's an effortlessness to the reality that we're projecting. Not that riding the creature is effortless. In fact, we take some time to show how difficult it is. But the sense of reality has to be kind of effortless for the viewer. And there's a lot that goes into that, a lot of preparation for the actors and the stunt people both.
So for each of the actors, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what the particular challenges were in that, maybe more memorable parts of the training, and how that really was essential work in crafting your performances. Zoe?
God, I tend to live in the backstory of a character, of a person. Where did I come from? Why? How? What? And because that always dictates just the way I'm going to react, as that character, and not react as me, as the person. Obviously, there's always going to be parts of you that will bleed into what you're doing, but Neytiri is such a unique and solid character that she just, she needed her backstory to just be strong. Like, does she have a sister? What else has she lost besides her father, home tree, her people? How does she feel? Does she, is she, and I know she loves Jake and she'll do anything. He's Torugmato, but he's a sky person, and they've brought in so much calamity. How do you wrestle with that? And then obviously that spirals into this whole research of displacement, and when families that come from two worlds come together and they start a family, how is that dynamic when they disagree on the way that they parent, or if they have different belief systems? All of those things were important in order for me to understand the Neytiri, the mother, and the wife, the partner to Jake, because Jim presented all of these conflicts that demanded just a lot of just research on that behalf. Like, she'll never question him. It's unnatural for the Na'vi to question the leader, the Torumato, but this is also her husband. This is also the father of her children. And she may have disagreements and how he is choosing to do something. And how does that affect their love and their journey? And when they lose something so precious in their lives, are they gonna blame each other? Like, all of these things are sort of like where I'm living with, and Neytiri once again came back to my life in such a rich form, and she really, Jim and Neytiri fucking ripped me apart, because I was also in my personal life dealing with all these things. We were shooting in 2017, bleeding into 2018. I'm becoming a mother. I was reconciling a lot of conflict when it came to just like my issues with men, and it's ironic that I have 3 men at home that I'm raising, with a husband that's such a flower of a person, and here I am playing this woman that's carrying so much rage, and so there was just a lot of it that was, just rich to get into, I'm gonna say.
I'm just going to jump in here for a split second, because Zoe said something the other day that I thought was quite profound. Zoe, you're talking about Neytiri was such a fearless character in the first film, and that you don't really know fear until you become a mother, and you felt that in your own life, that you were fearless as an actor, fearless as a performer. But the first time you really felt fear was when you put it outside yourself, your fear for your child, somebody that was more important to you than yourself. And we see that with Neytiri. I didn't even kind of put it together that that's what I was writing, but she's brought down to a kind of a mortal level by having these kids. And that's what we were doing with your character and with Sam's character.
Yes. That's true.
I think the biggest challenge for me is that any actor, you're going to get stuck in your head. You've got to get out of your head. But when you're under the water or doing anything, in that tank, it's silent. No one can speak, which is kind of cool. But at the same time, this speaks more. So you can't get out of your head. So all your thoughts are increasing. So I found once you settled your head under the water and just did your job, it actually helped when we came back into the normal scenes, the volume scenes, because you can learn to get out of your own way. So it kind of helped. At the same time as listening to your critic up here is kind of scary.
Sigourney, what about for you? Challenges of the water world.
Oh, yeah. Well, I play a character who loves the water, and I do love the water. I didn't know underwater as well as I do now, and I would get a little nervous before all of this every day. So I would make sure I would get to the pool about 20 minutes earlier so I can get all the gear on, and then I can do the famous static breath holds, which really get rid of your mammalian sense, your mammalian instincts, and really can turn you into a thinking water creature. And I'm so grateful to Jim. Jim Cameron does ask you to do challenging things, but he always gives you the support you need to do it successfully. And when I look at the movie, I am so astonished at how comfortable we all look in the water. I don't think that's something you can act. We were comfortable in the water by the time we were shooting these scenes. And so, whatever Jim asks me to do, it's easier to say yes, because otherwise he'll tease you. But in general, you also make sure you get the help you need.
Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you all for coming.